Four nations define the 2026 geopolitical landscape: the United States, China, Russia, and India. They project influence through massive economic scale and expanding military footprints. This chart tracks the global economy. Progress has stalled, with economic growth decelerating to 2.5% as energy and commodity shocks weigh on national outputs. Meanwhile, global military expenditure climbed for the 11th consecutive year, reaching a record $2.9 trillion. In many nations, these defense budgets are now high enough to stall domestic progress. Russia's commitment of 7.5% of its GDP to the military has contributed to a lost decade of income convergence, as resources shift away from infrastructure and per capita growth toward the front lines. This divergence is breaking the traditional superpower model. The financial math no longer supports a strategy of endlessly outspending rivals on high-cost, exquisite weaponry. On the modern battlefield, the financial risk of relying on few high-value assets is becoming clear. Concentrating a defense budget into legacy platforms creates a single point of failure that is increasingly easy to exploit. During Operation Epic Fury in 2026, the United States lost over a dozen MQ-9 Reapers in contested airspace. Each represented a $16 million investment. Losing $16 million to a single cheap interceptor or a focused wave of low-cost munitions creates an unsustainable replacement cycle. In modern warfare, these high-end assets are becoming liabilities that can be erased for a fraction of their procurement cost. This vulnerability has led to the rise of attritable mass, the strategic deployment of high volumes of inexpensive, disposable weapons designed to overwhelm an enemy's ability to respond. Russia's cost imposition strategy relies on this volume. They currently mix $10,000 plywood Gerbera decoys with armed Duran-2 drones. These decoys now account for roughly 40% of their long-range launches. The math is brutal. It forces a defender to choose between letting a strike hit its target or expending a $1 million interceptor missile to stop a piece of plywood. India is institutionalizing this shift through rapid domestic innovation. They recently flight-tested the Sheshna 150, an indigenous AI-controlled drone swarm designed to execute long-range saturation attacks. China is exporting this economic warfare at scale. Beijing recently finalized a $5 billion deal to build an assembly line for Wing Lun 3 combat drones in Saudi Arabia, embedding Chinese manufacturing into Middle Eastern defense strategies. The United States is attempting to pivot, launching the Replicator initiative to field thousands of low-cost autonomous systems before its legacy fleet is further depleted. Tactical dominance now belongs to the power that can successfully exhaust an adversary's inventory of multi-million-dollar interceptors using only a fraction of that investment. As tactical warfare becomes more decentralized and inexpensive, the risks to strategic assets are increasing. Cheap drones are now capable of striking the heart of a nation's strategic deterrent. In 2025, Ukraine's Operation Spider's Web used small, smuggled drones to damage Russian nuclear-capable bombers deep within the country's interior. This vulnerability, paired with the collapse of transparency treaties like New START, is driving an unregulated race to modernize nuclear arsenals across all 9 nuclear-armed states. While the US and Russia still hold 86% of global warheads, China is rapidly closing the gap, with an arsenal now estimated at 620 weapons. Because the drone-filled tactical battlefield is so chaotic, major powers are prioritizing their nuclear triads as the final guarantee of their national security. In 2026, global dominance requires a specific dual-track economic strategy. First, a power must maintain a massive economic engine. India's 6.48% growth rate provides the baseline capital required to fund a global presence. That baseline capital must also sustain the high-end insurance policy of a modern nuclear deterrent, safeguarding the nation against existential threats. Simultaneously, the nation must have the industrial capacity to mass-produce the cheap, autonomous swarms required for the attrition-based ground war. Global influence is no longer measured by total firepower, but by cost efficiency. In 2026, the empires that cannot balance high-end deterrence with low-cost mass will be consumed by the economics of the swarm.